Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times. Today we have another spoiler-free movie review, another horror movie that was released in 2021. We have Dawn of the Beast.
It's coffee time.
I have to admit that I did prejudge this movie based on the poster, based on the underwhelming acting that I saw on the trailer, and also on the lower ratings. But after watching the movie, I have to admit that it's not as bad as a lot of people are saying, and I have seen movies with a bigger budget that were worse for sure. So I thought I would make this video to bring a little bit more awareness to this indie film. Dawn of the Beast is an American indie horror film directed by Bruce Wemple. Aiming to see Bigfoot, students venture deep into an area of the northeastern wilderness that is known for its strange creature sightings, and soon they learn that there is much more sinister evil lurking in the woods. In 2020, Wemple directed Monsters, which was another film about Bigfoot sightings in upstate New York. In that same year, Wemple also wrote and directed The Retreat, a film about the Wendigo. In a horror podcast, the director did confirm that they were trying in this movie to merge both monsters of both previous movies, the Bigfoot and the Wendigo. The film starts with a text, like a black and white text, just letting us know the story of these woods. We learn that in this area there are a lot of sightings of monsters, of creatures, and that every year a lot of people disappear, and these disappearances are cases that are never solved. So all of these disappearances happen mostly the same month, and the villagers, the people that live there, call this month the Dead Month. Before the opening credits roll, we already get a little bit of taste of those creatures, of those monsters that we're going to see in this film, and we see our first couple fighting against them. Now, they are not showing us too much, but they're just giving us a little hint on what's to come. After this, we kind of start our cliched story at the beginning, because we follow our group of friends in a car, traveling together, looking for a new adventure, and we see them, have this tour guide that is guiding them through the woods, telling them the stories of the creatures that they can find. And of course, because our characters are supposed to get themselves in trouble, and we know that this is the beginning of their demise, they decide to leave the official trail and just walk into the woods, hoping to find some of the mythical creatures that potentially can be seen in these woods. This is a low-budget movie, and we always have to remember this, especially when you have this type of indie movies. I think it's unfair to directly compare them with movies that had a lot more money to execute their ideas. Now, I think specifically in this movie, they were quite smart when it came to use the money in things that actually did work, especially when it comes to the horror. So I felt in this movie they were really smart, and they put the money in elements and things in the movie that actually worked, because the visuals in general of this movie were very decent. We still get to see some cliche moments, we still get to see some of the jump scares, and one of my critiques was that the soundtrack was sometimes a little bit too intense. When horror movies are trying to make a scene specifically intense and they just raise the volume of the music like crazy, or the soundtrack, and that can be a little bit annoying to me personally, but this is a personal preference. It's not like it was a bad score or anything like that. Actually, at times I really appreciated the song choices that they made, but when it comes to the visuals and the shots that they did, there are some scenes that were shot so beautifully for an indie low-budget movie. There is a specific scene where we find one of our main characters, a girl, in the middle of the road. It's night and you can see her there, and it was just so beautiful. That shot, I really loved it, and I feel like they did such a good job at creating this atmosphere at nighttime without many resources, and maybe just like one point of light, And for me, it really worked. Now, I did mention that there are some cliches in this movie, but I feel like they did not abuse the tropes at all, and they did distance themselves from other movies that deal with these mythical creatures like Bigfoot or the Wendigo, and they tried to do something fresh and new, which I really appreciated. As I have mentioned before, the atmosphere, the visuals were great, and one thing that I particularly thought was so well done in this movie was the practical effects and the visual effects in general. They were so well done, and I feel like that's where probably most of the budget went into, and that was a good decision, because this is not one of those B movies where they just throw buckets of, you know, blood and they have naked women to make a fun horror slasher. Like, they did pay attention to the makeup, the practical effects, the creatures. I kind of wish we would have seen a little bit more of the creatures like fighting, but I have to say there were a lot of moments that were really creepy and they had really good visuals. I think where this movie was kind of lacking as well was when it comes to the story, the plot, because there were a couple of different storylines, almost as if they were not sure which one they wanted to do, so they kind of integrated all of them, but at times they didn't really connect with each other, and it ended up being a little bit messy, because we are in this movie also following more than one creature, so maybe they were a little bit ambitious when it comes to that, and they wanted to show us so many different creatures and make this such an epic movie. Maybe if they would have toned that down a little bit, you know, just focus on one, maybe two storylines and then less creatures, maybe, you know, the plot in general wouldn't have been so messy. I have to be honest with you guys, and for me the least favorite thing about this film was the characters in general. They were really bland, they didn't really bring anything to the story, and there was no character that really stood out. And I don't know if part of that is because the acting was underwhelming in general for me, and you know, there was no real character development here, there was no real backstory, there was nothing that would make me care about these characters. Now, this is something that for me is not always a must in this type of films, like in slashers or this type of movies. You don't really need a more deep storytelling when it comes to the characters, because you know that most of them are not gonna make it to see tomorrow anyways. So it's not something super important, but I think the acting was just not the best, and that might bother some people, so I just wanted to bring that up. Where this movie really succeeds is bringing something a little bit new. Like, they are still using some of the tropes of the horror movies, especially when it comes to, you know, horror movies based on mythical creatures that lives in the woods. There are some things that you're gonna see that you've seen before, some kills that you have seen before, but they're still being something fresh, and I actually appreciated that from this movie. And if you are a horror fan, you're gonna get really cool creatures, which I hoped we would have seen more of, especially towards the end. Specific creatures, I would have loved to see more of them. And you're gonna get some nice gore, some nice like disturbing moments, really good visuals, and you know, special effects, makeup. That was my favorite part. I thought it was done so well. All in all, I decided to give this movie 2.5 out of 5, which for me it means that it is completely worth one watch. And I actually didn't expect to enjoy the movie as much as I did when I saw the poster, I have to be honest with you guys, and I feel like a lot of people are gonna have that same feeling, so that's also part of why I wanted to make this video today. I think it was a fresh indie film that, you know, it's flawed, but it comes from a good place, it has some heart, and it's definitely fun, and it was satisfying for me. There were a lot of visuals that I really enjoyed. So if you love indie movies, I think that you would appreciate this one. I know indie movies or lower budget movies are not for everybody, but I always like to give these movies a chance, because sometimes they might surprise you and you might even find a hidden gem. Alright guys, so this was my spoiler-free review of Dawn of the Beast. As always, I hope that you enjoyed it, and I have not really seen anybody really talking about this movie, so let me know down below if you've watched it, if you knew about it at all. Let's talk about it in the comments, and thank you so much you guys for watching. As always, please give the video a big thumbs up for support, and I hope to see you all guys in our next coffee time. Bye!